Welcome to Giving Voice to Vision. This month our guest is Kristy Cavinder Frontiera. She was born and raised in Southern California and earned her Bachelor of Arts in Neuroscience at the University of Southern California and her Master's in Teaching at Chapman University. She was Miss California 2009 and the first runner-up to Miss America in 2010. She was also a preliminary talent winner in Miss America and earned over just $50,000 in scholarships from the Miss California and Miss America organizations. Kristy has trained extensively in ballet, dance, and parades at Disneyland, and trained with the American Ballet Theater in New York City. She is passionate about education and has worked at various inner-city charter schools on the East Coast and in South Central Los Angeles as a teacher and assistant principal. She now is the Director of Operations and Women's Pastor for her church and oversees women's ministry and community groups. Kristy and her husband, Nick, have 3 children and live in Long Beach. Let's welcome Kristy to Giving Voice to Vision. Welcome, Kristy. We're glad to have you with us today for giving your voice to your vision. So we'll get started. And the first question I have for you is, growing up, you had dreams and visions for what you wanted to do in the future. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think in high school and college, I had a singular vision that I wanted to make an impact. I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like. And during high school, I really developed a passion for science. I loved dissecting things. I was really interested in pursuing a career in the medical field. And had also always been passionate about dance. And that was a huge part of my life growing up. I was a ballerina and loved performing and loved just everything about dance and how to express myself through dance. And so in college, I kind of came to a crossroads where I needed to decide what was my next path in life. And I had an opportunity to attend New York University on a dance scholarship or go to USC and pursue medicine. And ultimately, I decided to go to USC and major in biology at first. I ended up graduating with my degree in neuroscience, but I was hoping to enter the medical field and specifically work with children. I really wanted to help children physically and make an impact in their lives. And throughout the course of college, that shifted and changed as I really got into volunteering in hospitals and in schools, and decided that actually I wanted to make a difference on a different level and really wanted to be a part of their daily lives. And so I ended up pursuing education after my undergraduate degree and became a teacher, assistant principal, and started working with kids in inner city schools, and really was able to develop a relationship over the course of a year, 2 years. And so forth. And so my passion has always lied in making a difference in other people's lives.
That's wonderful. You've made a difference in the lives of a lot of kids and a lot of people throughout your life so far, and I know you'll continue to do so. But you got involved in pageants. What was the story of you getting involved in pageants, and what was the history behind that?
Well, when I first started at USC, I remember going to the gym and signing a big master promissory note for my first student loan. And in the back of my head, I thought, that's a lot of money. And I knew at that point in time, medical school was the hope. And so I knew that there would be a lot more school and a lot more student loans to come. And so I started to wonder how I was going to pay for all of this school. And a couple acquaintances that I knew had been involved in the Miss America organization. I had always watched the Miss America pageant growing up. And so I just started to research what it looked like to compete at a local pageant. And I decided to just go for it. So I entered the Miss Los Angeles County pageant my freshman year of college. And I used my old prom dress. I bought a swimsuit from the swap meet. I borrowed a tutu from my ballet studio, and I just showed up at the pageant not knowing anything. It was very green. And after competing, I placed as one of the runner-ups, and I won $100. And I was very excited about that. I thought that pays for one book. I put no money into this, and I got a $100 scholarship. And so I was really happy about that. But after that pageant, the local directors approached me and said, you should compete again. And I didn't realize this was something that you can do year after year. And in doing so, you can increase the amount of scholarship money that you can earn. And so over the course of the next 3 years, I competed in a few more pageants, ended up winning Miss California, becoming the first runner-up to Miss America, and earned over $50,000 in scholarships. I was not a pageant girl growing up. I think I always say my parents are so supportive and they would encourage me to do anything that I was passionate about. But when I said I'm going to do a pageant, they were like, I'm not sure if that is your strong suit. I walk with my feet turned out. I just didn't have any expertise or knowledge about what it looks like to be in a pageant. And in participating, I really realized that being a part of a pageant helped me grow up so much, helped me learn so much about myself. It really helped me better myself in kind of every area. There's a private interview where you have to know what you think about every current event topic, where you have to learn how to really communicate what you're passionate about, where you need to be able to stand in front of a variety of people and learn how to express yourself, as well as practicing my talent. So I still had an opportunity to practice ballet and have an opportunity to perform. And the world of pageants really opened my eyes to a lot of opportunity, as well as paid for a lot of school. So I'm grateful for that.
What was the process like for you for Miss California and Miss America? What specifically did you learn, and what advice would you give to others who may be interested in pageants, either having a daughter become involved in pageants, or someone who's listening that may be of the age that can enter into a pageant? What advice would you give them?
I think for me, a huge part of being involved in the organization was learning about myself. And so the Miss America organization and Miss California organization has young women pick one issue. It's now called a social impact initiative. It used to be called our platform, but something that was really important to us that we were able to promote during our year of service. So for me, I partnered with the Children's Miracle Network as well as the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Again, I really had that goal of making a difference in the lives of kids. And so for me to be a part of pageants gave me an opportunity to go visit a bunch of hospitals because I wore this shiny rhinestone hat. I could go in and talk to kids, encourage them, hear about their lives, take a picture, play games with them, whatever it was. I also got to grant a lot of wishes with them. So I think the first part of being involved in the Miss California organization is having something that you are really passionate about, whether that's a nonprofit organization or another organization that you volunteer or work for. That's kind of the first step in being involved in the organization. There is also a talent section. And so that has evolved and changed over the years. It's been over 15 years since I was Miss California. So for me, I was able to have the opportunity to really practice my talent and practice ballet. And now you can do all sorts of different talents. There's speed painting, and one of the talents is even called Her Story. And so that is an opportunity for women. Instead of doing a more traditional talent like singing and piano, it's actually just to share 90 seconds. What is your story? What makes you unique? What has contributed to who you are now? And lastly, there are components of private interview and also evening gown. How can you stay poised and present yourself in a public setting? And so I think if you're interested in entering a local pageant, Miss California organization, or if you live in a different state, the Miss America organization is a great place to start. There are opportunities all across the US to get involved with this organization. And there are so many passionate volunteers who really care a lot about helping young women grow and mature and thrive and be able to make a difference in their communities.
That's great. You had a vision once you got selected for Miss California, and I'm assuming that was to be Miss America. Why did you want to become Miss America, and what difference did you want to make by becoming Miss America?
Once I started to get involved in pageants, I realized the opportunity that came along with this title and how people were just willing to allow you to come speak to their school, or they wanted you to come speak to their school and their kids and visit hospitals. And so I really loved the opportunity that I was presented with as Miss California, and I wanted to scale that even larger on a national scale. And so winning the state pageant allowed me the opportunity to compete for the job of Miss America. And it's funny because I think a lot of people want to become Miss America to go to the fancy events and wear the beautiful dresses, and that's all fun and was a perk, sure. But I think for me, it was really the day in, day out job of being Miss America, which was what most intrigued me, which was speaking at tons of schools, meeting a ton of kids. I remember as a young girl, I had the opportunity to meet a few different Miss Americas and just being in awe of who they were, and what a great opportunity for a positive role model in a young girl's life to say, hey, I didn't grow up as a pageant girl, or I'm just a regular, ordinary girl who trips over things and bumps into the wall. And I have something I'm passionate about, and I want to make a difference in the lives of other people. And so the opportunity to do that on a national scale was certainly part of my dream, and that didn't come to fruition, and that's okay. I got really close, and I think what I learned along the way still has shaped me so much into who I am today, and has really helped me in a lot of different avenues as a mom, as a wife, as a professional, as a teacher. I've learned so many lessons by being a part of that organization. And I think for me, when I competed at Miss America, I really wanted to feel like I pursued every opportunity. I worked as hard as I possibly could to get to that point. And so I left feeling very proud, like I had done everything I hoped for, and left it kind of all out on the stage, if you will. But I think for me, pursuing something that you're really passionate about is committing to doing the hard work and committing to becoming the best version of yourself. And so that's what happened for me during that process.
Well, during your process of going through Miss California and Miss America, you had the opportunity to visit hospitals. And I know there was one story that you visited a hospital and you got to visit some soldiers. Tell us what that experience was like.
Well, during my year, like I said, we partnered with the Children's Miracle Network. So I visited every Children's Miracle Network hospital in California, as well as several VAs. So I did a VA tour up in Northern California, as well as visited the VA in Long Beach, along with the current Miss America. And that was a very forming experience for me. I think sometimes I would walk into a room and have no idea what I was walking into, whether it was a wounded soldier, a veteran who no longer had eyesight or no longer had limbs, and how joyful they were to see me in a dress with a crown on was very surprising to me. And I felt like I was giving them my autograph, and I was like, this is not right. You should be giving me your autograph. You sacrificed so much you sacrificed so much for me, and here I am in a shiny hat, and you want to take a picture with me. So that was very humbling, because I think for me, I definitely felt like the tables should be turned. And throughout my year as Miss California, I learned how to find out the stories of other people. And I think this is one of the lessons that's kind of carried through with me. And I realize a lot now in the current role that I'm in at my church is, how do you be about other people? And so when I walk into a room, I would walk into lots of different rooms with strangers and be with volunteers who I need to spend the next 8 hours in the car with and I had never met before, or walk into a hospital room, as I just mentioned, and have to make a conversation with someone. And so I got really good at and really interested in other people's lives. So how can you ask questions? How can you be interested in what makes other people tick, what they're passionate about, and find some commonality and connection with them? And now in my role in women's ministry and with our community groups at our church, that's part of my goal, is to get other people to realize, how do you have deep connections with other people? How do you share your story? How do you hear someone else's? And what happens in that space when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to hear about other people's lives? So visiting hospitals for me was a growing experience, and it was a beautiful opportunity that I had during my year as Miss California, and also taught me a lot of lessons that I still use today.
Well, we've talked about your Miss America and Miss California roles and what you've done. You've also worked at inner city schools in Southern California, and you've worked with a lot of different students. Can you share an experience with us that you had as far as working with those kids? And then I've got a follow-up question as far as your role now as Director of Operations and Women's Ministry Director at your church. What message do you have for girls growing up and young women that you get the opportunity to speak to?
I think working at inner city schools for me, when I first got my teaching credential, there were not a lot of jobs. And I didn't initially know that I cared so much about working in that environment, but I got hired at a school in South Central Los Angeles, teaching kindergarten to a lot of students who didn't have a book in their house, had never held a pencil before, didn't have parents that spoke English at home. And so I realized, like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity for me to make a huge impact in these students' lives. I also worked at a charter school in New Jersey, which was, again, low income. A lot of these students' parents didn't graduate or didn't even attend middle school. And so they would come to us in kindergarten. They would be leaving kindergarten, reading at second grade levels, and now are in college and just thriving and doing amazing things in their lives. And so for me, it was an exercise in grit and learning that a lot of hard work and determination and personalization of their education was providing them a lot of opportunity later in life. And so I learned how to have a different type of empathy and learned how to kind of give everything I had to these kids. And I saw what came out of it, and it was beautiful. And I'm still in contact with some of those kids. I think it was an amazing opportunity for me to have a really strong passion and really strong opportunity to make a difference. And so whether making a difference sometimes means taking a picture, signing an autograph to a soldier, or it meant teaching a kid to read and giving them a skill that will set them up for later success in life and opportunity to go to college and change the history of maybe their family of origin and change the history of the environment and socioeconomic status they were living in. I loved having the opportunity to do that. And so that is something that's a huge part of my story, and a huge part of what I really care about is education and giving that equity in education where it was desperately needed at the time. Your follow-up question, which is about a little more about what I do right now. I oversee women's ministry at our church, which is never part of what I thought my vision in life would be. My mom was the director of women's ministry, and I watched her do it for many, many years. And so part of it feels very natural and obvious that I would find myself in this role. Yet in college and beyond, I never would have dreamed that this is where I would be a little over a decade later. And so now I get the opportunity to really work with women and hear their stories. And I love that. I feel so privileged when someone's willing to share their lives with me and let me walk alongside them in that process. And so I think for young women who are looking for connection, I think there's a lot of need right now for direction. I think a lot of women would love for God to just tell us, here's the next 3 things that are going to happen in your life, and here are the things that you need to do to get to that point. And unfortunately, that is not how life works. And so I think it's really important to have relationships, to have mentors, to have friends who deeply know you and understand you, who can walk alongside you in that process. And so if I were to encourage young girls, it would be to invest your time in deep friendships and in deep relationships. Those don't always need to be peers who are your same age. We happen to be a very multi-generational church. So at any given women's event or table group, you will see young adults ages 18 up through what they call our golden girls, who are in their 80s. And there's just this beauty that comes from different generations coming together to encourage each other and share stories and share your lives. And I think when you feel really, really known and you have people in your life who are encouraging you out of that seat of really knowing your story and knowing what you're passionate about, there's so much value in that. And I definitely had that growing up. My parents were so encouraging of me. I had grandparents who told me I could do anything I set my mind to, and definitely had teachers and friends and other mentors, church leaders who were building into me. And I think that gave me the opportunity, gave me the motivation, gave me the confidence to be able to pursue kind of anything I set my mind to.
That's wonderful. This has been a great interview. You've shared a lot with us in a short amount of time, and I've just got a couple more questions for you. And the first question is, who was or who is your role model growing up? Who do you say has been your biggest influence, and why?
That's a good question. You didn't send that to me beforehand. I don't know if there's any one singular person. I think that, again, I grew up in a community and a household of strong women. I think both of my grandmas overcame significant adversity in their life, and I didn't really know it any different than to be a strong woman myself. My mom also was a very strong woman who I feel like all of them are able to lead, they're able to communicate, they modeled what it is like to be about other people. And so I would say like the closest representative of a role model would definitely be like the women in my family, my mom, my grandma. It's funny because I feel like my mom would always make relationships with anybody and everybody. So if she goes to Starbucks every day, she knows the Starbucks person's name. She goes to the same bagel place every day, she knows the bagel person's name. She doesn't just know their name, she knows their story, she knows what they're passionate about, what their hopes and dreams are. She will encourage Hector to go to college and so on and so forth. And a couple of weeks ago, I went to the dentist, and my dentist appointment was very long, and my dentist was crying, and I heard her whole story, and I was like, oh my gosh, I turned into my mom, because now I'm finding out the story about my dentist's life, and that is like not what I'm here to do, just clean my teeth and leave. But again, that almost subliminal message, subconscious influence that I had on my life now comes out naturally in me, and I see that as a beautiful gift that I was given.
Great. And my final question is, we have people listening, and they may or may not have a vision or a dream. They may have had a vision or dream, and it got taken from them through circumstances or just through life. And we may have people who do have a dream or vision. What advice would you give to those who don't have a vision or a dream? And what advice would you give to those who do have maybe a vision or dream, as far as going through those obstacles, going through those tough times? What advice would you give to them? So kind of a two-parted question.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you taught me that if you don't know what you're passionate about, to think about what breaks your heart. And I was actually just talking about that this weekend, because we were doing a welcome class at our church, and we were talking about equipping ambassadors for the kingdom and what that means as a church. And what it means is really helping people in our church discover what they're passionate about, what their spiritual gifts are, and then equipping them to go do that work for the kingdom. And so I think if you aren't sure where your vision lies and what you're passionate about, the first is really thinking about what breaks your heart. What do you spend time thinking about? What really gets your engines revved up? And then trying to create a vision around that. I think sometimes that can require patience. For me, at least, it's like, I know I want to do something, but what is it? And so allowing patience and time for reflection to really identify what that vision is, and then bringing people alongside of you to help really craft that vision. Who can I trust that I can bounce ideas off of? Who can help me edit this vision and make it really clear? And then I think if you do have that vision and it hasn't come to fruition yet, something I've been thinking a lot lately about and doing research about as I prepare for our upcoming women's retreat is that God's not finished with us yet. And I think sometimes we're in this in-between where we feel called to do something, or we have a vision of what we want to do, and it hasn't happened yet. And so what do we do when we're in that in-between time? It requires a lot of trust, a lot of hope, a lot of grit, a lot of determination to keep moving forward. But I also think that anchoring ourselves in knowing the promises of God and who he is, and then also looking towards the possibility of what is possible. So in school, we talk about this as kind of growth mindset, right? So instead of, I don't know how to read, it's, I don't know how to read yet, or I haven't learned that skill yet. And so I think sometimes if your vision is a little bit stuck, or if the end goal of your vision hasn't happened yet, how can you remove those limitations, those fears, those things that are holding you back, to really discover the possibility of what could happen in the future? And so that idea of yet has been kind of resonating with me. If your vision hasn't come to fruition yet, what can you do in that in-between time as you are continuing to strive forward?
I do have one more question, even though I said that was the last question, but this question is basically that at an early age, you learned what your purpose was. And I think you've stayed to that purpose. Do you remember what your purpose statement is back from that time, or close to what your purpose is? Or can you share with us if somebody asks you, what is your purpose? What would you say? What is your why?
Oh gosh, I'm sure it's written down multiple times in different iterations in different journals, but I think my purpose has always been to make a difference in the lives of other people. When I was in first grade, I had my own club of kindergartners, and I was their teacher, and we had spelling tests, and we did crafts after school, and I had all these little kids who were a year younger than me who I was kind of shepherding, discipling. We would put on shows, and that like investment in someone else has been something that has truly been kind of a through line in my life of no matter what I've done, what career I found myself in, that has always been a part of it. And it's interesting now as a mom to kind of see your kids and start to identify in them, like, I wonder what they could be passionate about and how can I help develop that in them. But it's an interesting exercise to go back and look throughout your life at shaping experiences and things that were important to you, and to try and find that through line of what has always been true about me in something that I desire. And that is one thing.
Well, being your father, it's been such a pleasure and joy to watch you grow up, and you are making a difference. You have made a difference, and you'll continue to make a difference, not only in the lives of your husband, your kids, your family, your friends, but the church and those people that you'll meet along the way. And I just want to applaud you for what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're going to be doing. And just thank you so much for taking the time today to share with us your heart and share with us your story. So thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you.